Now, certainly among the Israelis looking to do business or just to visit in the United Arab Emirates will be religiously observant Jews who follow the laws of Kashrut or kosher food. Well, Rabbi Issachar Dov Krakowski, the head of the Orthodox Union in Israel, was flown in by the UAE to oversee the preparation of kosher food for the Israeli delegation that visited Abu Dhabi last week. And he will continue in the job of seeing that Kashrut is observed in future eating venues for the observant there in the UAE. And Rabbi Krakowski, the rabbinic coordinator for OU Kosher, joins us now from Jerusalem. And Rabbi, let's talk about that experience you had last week. I mean, how challenging or fulfilling was it to go to the UAE and make sure, especially for someone like Meir Ben Shabbat, the religiously observant national security advisor, that everything would be kosher?
Hi, good evening. First of all, it's a very different sort of kosher job when you do something in the Arab Gulf. It's in a lot of ways it's refreshing, and at the same time, it has its challenges. The challenges are obvious. You're not in an environment where there's an immense amount of kosher products readily and easily available. It's not just, they run out of something, so you call up any local supplier and get some more meat or get some more chicken or get some more cheese, etc. So you have to have it better planned out in advance, make sure that they have everything they need for their menu. Usually I'll be less particular about going over the proposed menu beforehand. And, I know, worst case scenario, we can change things, we can find new sources, etc. When you come out there, you know that whatever you have, that's what you have, and that's it. So you kind of have to make sure that the menu was built properly in advance. So that's one of the challenges, which I imagine, not only I already see it changing in terms of various meetings that we're having with various forums in the UAE and in other areas, that they're already planning strategies in terms of having, regular supplies of kosher meat, of kosher cheese, of all sorts of things like that. What's actually refreshing and different and really, in a certain way makes it easier and makes you feel better about the whole job is that usually, you do a kosher job, even here in Israel, where, pretty much, shouldn't everything be kosher and shouldn't it be super easy to make it super kosher, etc. But, when it comes to kosher something, whether it's from meat to dairy, dairy to meat, or for Passover, so, everything becomes a little bit of an argument. Do you really, do we really need to kosher it? Is there an easier way to kosher it? Can we just clean it? Do we really need to buy a new one, etc.? There, I kind of say the word budget doesn't exist. You're dealing with royalty. And, just to give you an example, they brought out a fancy Ninja blender, the brand name of blenders. And they asked me, can you kosher? I said, no, it's really, not really. We break it if we actually would kosher it. So instead, you just need, the top part of the blender to be new. So the chef turned to one of the kitchen staff and he says, I need 2 brand new ones in the next half hour. About 5 minutes later, 4 brand new ones arrived. So it's just that type of thing. There was an ingredient that they bought something because of a misunderstanding, thinking that the sauce would be kosher. Was truffles. They thought the truffle sauce would be kosher. We were really talking about truffles being kosher. They paid thousands of dirhams, the local currency, in order to be able to get fresh truffles over to the hotel in a half hour's time from the other side of Abu Dhabi. So, it's extremely refreshing and it makes it easier and you feel very welcome when that's the approach.
Right. Now, I imagine in some ways, because this is an observant Muslim society there are certain things they can relate to very easily to kashrut, a certain way to prepare meat because they have halal meat, of course, the ban on any pork products. So there's common ground there. But did you find experience or do you even anticipate the complexities, for example, of mixing milk and meat, the need for alternate sets of plates? Are those where maybe, did you find that challenging or you anticipate that might be something of a challenge?
Okay, so I'll tell you, in the past, I did a similar type of event in a different Gulf country in February. And there, we kept it to meat was very important. We kept it to a meat and parva venue for that purpose. Anyway, their dairy products were hard to come by, and they decided it wasn't worth, the everything it involved in order to make sure that we would have a supply of all the dairy products. So they did, it's even breakfast. They did non-dairy, non-meat, vegan if you want to call it, or vegetarian. I want to call it vegan. They had eggs and fish, but it was a non-meat, non-dairy type of breakfast, and the rest of the meals were all meaty. Here, originally, the plan was to do meat and dairy, in large part because of some of our requirements in order to keep two totally separate, hermetically, closed off kitchens from one another, and have two alternate staff, so we shouldn't have to worry about the cross-contamination from the staff, and the staff would come in from one kitchen to the other kitchen with dairy or meat. In the end, we decided to go, after planning originally to have meat and making sure that we'd have the meat available, we went on a strictly dairy fish type of diet menu for all three meals.
Right.
In terms of new plates, the crockery, the cutlery, the flatware ones, etc., they brought everything brand new for each of the meals. And as we actually had a situation, we had people eating kosher and not kosher right next to each other.
Right.
In order to make a distinction both for the staff and those that were eating, we made place cards that said K on it for kosher.
Rabbi,
originally, what I suggested,
I want to jump in because since you raised it, I do have to ask you, you said you were in another Gulf country. Now, Prime Minister Netanyahu was on a public visit to Oman. Was it that country, or was it another Gulf state that you are not at liberty to name?
It's another Gulf state, which is probably better than left to leave unmentioned at the moment. And it was a respectable delegation. It didn't entail anybody from the Israeli government though. But that was at the behest of the other government also, that they wanted to be hospitable properly so, and they wanted to have it kosher so that the Jews attending would be able to eat kosher.
So my takeaway from that is there may be kosher restaurants sprouting out all over the Gulf quicker than we know, or at least
I mean.
I'm sorry, we're out of time, Rabbi Krukowski.
Okay.